Would you like to know what the beings in the ninth planet of the ninth dimension think of us humans? This is Robert Manni, host of Guys TV, and this week my special guest is Samuel Chong. We're going to talk about Michel Desmarquet's book, The Thiaoouba Prophecy. It all starts right here, right now on Guys TV. You can also catch me on KCAA Radio here in Southern California, Guys Radio, my worldwide podcast, and now on UK Health Radio. Guys TV, Guys Radio, thanks for your support. Okay, Guys Radio, our very special portion of the show when we interview a selected guest who's going to help us out, bring us some new information for everybody out there. Today, we've got a fantastic guest with a fantastic out-of-this-world story. Today, we're going to talk about extraterrestrials with Samuel Chong. Let me tell you a little bit about Samuel and the book that we're going to discuss. Samuel is a court interpreter and Chinese translator. He was instrumental in arranging the Chinese publication of the book we're going to talk about today called The Thiaoouba Prophecy, which has been a bestseller in both China and Taiwan. It's available on Amazon. You can get the physical book or a downloaded book. I read the book over the weekend. I found it fascinating, and I'm really interested in getting into it. Now, Samuel did not write the book. A gentleman by the name of Michel Desmarquet wrote the book. He passed in 2018. He developed a relationship with Samuel, and we're going to get into that because that's also a very interesting story. So Samuel really is involved with Chinese translation. His goal is really to help find justice in the world and help bring this message of the Thiaoouba Prophecy to people because it's such a fantastic story. It's called The Abduction to the Ninth Planet. It's a book of quote-unquote warnings from ETs and also from an advanced civilization. The book details the author's unique experiences of being invited to visit an extraterrestrial planet that has an advanced civilization, way more advanced than anything we could even imagine on Earth. He was informed of the history of Earth, ancient civilizations with ET visits, facts about reincarnation, the afterlife, the construction and purposes of the Great Pyramid, the statues on Easter Island, Bermuda Triangle, auras, human energy fields, and stories from the Bible and historical facts. Just amazing stuff. Again, the author, Michel Desmarquet, passed away in 2018, but my special guest, Samuel Chong, has pretty much taken the baton, has been running with it and getting the word out on this very interesting and fascinating book. So welcome to Guys Radio, Samuel Chong. Sorry for the long introduction. I just thought it was important to get some context for what we're going to discuss today.
Oh, thank you for having me here.
Okay, let's talk about the actual title of the book. Did I pronounce it correctly? Thiaoouba Prophecy?
Well, the author, Michel Desmarquet, pronounces as Thiaoouba Prophecy.
The Thiaoouba Prophecy, okay.
Which is similar to the pronunciation of Jehovah, which has a connection to the Bible.
Okay. You were drawn to books about ETs for a long time. Why is that?
I just wanted the human race to progress at a much faster pace. I thought that if we can just learn from the advanced civilizations, we can probably take the shortcut and then advance much better.
Okay. Why did you find this book? How did you come across it, and why did it stand out to you, and what is different about it?
I mean, I was searching on Amazon that one day, and then I found this book about messages from the ETs. I thought it was just another book, but then after I read it, it actually made me believe the stories in the Bible. Before that time, I didn't believe anything in the Bible. I thought Jesus was a fictional character. It was made up. It was science fiction. But after I read the book, it connected all the dots, and I finally believed that there was a person called Jesus Christ.
Okay.
And Christ.
You tell us about the author then, Michel Desmarquet. He was, from what I read, and I read the book over the weekend, a landscaper, and he was contacted by these ETs who took him to this planet very, very far away from Earth. How did you, what inspired you to reach out and connect with him? Because I believe he was living in Vietnam at the time.
That's right. He was living on a southern island in Vietnam at that time. His name is actually Michel Desmarquet when it's pronounced in French.
Okay.
I was searching for him because in the postscript of the book, it says there are more incredible things that he was not allowed to write in the book because we were far from understanding them. That got me extremely curious because the book already contains a lot of information that's fascinating, that's very incredible. And what's more incredible about it, I wanted to find. That's why I took the opportunity and I took the chance to locate him.
And you mentioned in your notes that initially he didn't really want to have anything to do with you, but over time he developed a trust with you and you guys developed a relationship. Tell us about that. What happened?
That's right. In the first 3 days, we were just talking, and he was kind of annoyed at my questions because he thought I didn't read the book well enough to ask him more profound questions. And he thought my questions were very superficial, and I could get the answers from just from reading the book a few more times. But then after that, he found out that I could be able to help him to follow up with a contract that he signed with a Chinese publisher. That publisher paid him $2,000 for the copyright fee, but never contacted him again. He wanted to find out whether the book was published in China or not. And then it turned out that that book wasn't published in China because of the fear of the censorship.
And then it finally did get published in China and Taiwan. It became a bestseller, but under the guise of the genre of science fiction, not nonfiction, correct?
That's right. In China, it was classified as a science fiction, but in Taiwan, it was classified as a nonfiction. In both places, it was a bestseller.
It's just absolutely amazing to me. From reading the book, it would make a terrific. There's so much information there for make a great movie. Has there been any discussion about that?
There has been some discussion about making a documentary about it, but so far we are just in the very beginning stage of it.
Okay, well, let's talk about the book itself and what happened to Michel. Apparently, he was abducted from his backyard or whatever by these ETs, and they took him to a planet, Thiaoouba, and which is 9 levels of planets away from Earth. Apparently, there's kind of a pecking order in terms of advancement in spirituality and technology working together in a positive way between different planets and solar systems. And Earth is at a 1, which is really kind of a place of sorrow, as they refer to it as. And the 9th is so far away that there were so many things that Michel was exposed to. A lot of it was hard for him to comprehend and also for us to comprehend. The other point is he wasn't a writer, he was a landscaper. So they kind of, I guess, helped him by channeling the book. And it's just an amazing story, very easy to read, and it's a real eye-opener. So tell us what some of the things about the planet he landed on and how, from reading the book and your conversations with him, what was different, or what new information did you glean from him versus what was in the book?
Well, the difference is that I was trying to find out what he didn't write in the book and what he wasn't allowed to write in the book. Um, and what he told me, there were 2 things that he told me that were not in the book that I can talk about. One is regarding the 3 chambers beneath the Sphinx of Egypt. He says that when the 3 chambers are opened, when we would know everything is like the record of history or the record of the past. And then, but we are not ready yet. And then the second thing is about the what some people call the gray aliens, the little grays that the conspiracy theorists that have been talking about that the U.S. government has been collaborating with and getting the technologies from. And he says that the grays really did implant about 150 people or so by the year 1995, just to monitor us how we respond to the situation that we have had a decreasing immune system since 1948. But there is absolutely no harm for us because the Thiaoubans have also been monitoring the situation. And the Greys just did that, just monitor us. And because they're facing the same issue, they're also from category 1 planet. And they're actually a dying race just like us.
Mm-hmm. So the Thiaoubans, they took Michel to hit their planet. Tell us a little bit about what Michel experience when he got there? There's just so much. I'll let you kind of tell a little bit of the story.
Well, the planet Thiaoouba is also called the Golden Planet because when Michel Desmarquet was approaching that planet, he saw like a golden mist surrounding that planet. Everything was just like so surreal. When he landed on the planet, he found out that the gravity of the planet was actually smaller than Earth. So he had to be really careful about moving around, and they actually had to put like a facial mask on him in order to filter out some of the strong lights or strong colors on the from the planet, because everything was so shining, so colorful. And then he met the seven masters of the planet, and he learned a lot of things that what we should be careful for, a lot of warnings from the friendly ETs. And by the way, the ETs are really beautiful. They're 9 feet tall and they're like they have blonde hair. They look like beautiful women, very sexy, but having very sexy bodies. But they're hermaphrodites. I mean, male and female together, having this both organs and sexual organs of male and female. So he had a lot of very interesting encounters, and he visited his past lives. He realized that he had 80 previous lives. He was explained what reincarnation was, and also a lot of interesting things that at least I've been very curious about since I was
Okay.
young.
Okay, so he was selected apparently by Theo, I think the name is Theo, right?
Thiaoouba,
And
yes.
Theo, who is a Theoban, and they told him that because he had had 80 past lives, he was selected. Now, for most people, how many past lives do they have? Apparently, the way it works is we keep going back and back and back to work on things till we get to the point where we can elevate or ascend to the next level. And for a lot of people, it takes many, many lives. Now, Michel had 80. I've heard that people can have, hundreds of past lives. So is 80, what type, that's a little bit different from what I've heard before in terms of the cutoff point, in terms of a lot of lives, if you will. And he was selected specifically because he was one of the few people on Earth who had 80 past lives. And they showed him, they put him in some type of suspended state of animation or reality, whatever, and they showed him, and he integrated really with a lot of his past lives on Earth. Talk to us about that.
Yes, he had a lot of very common, very interesting past lives. Yeah, interesting past lives. He was like a mining worker in Germany, and he was a goldsmith in Japan, and he was like beggars, a few times beggars on street. But he was also like a queen on a seventh level planet. And there he had a very interesting experience, and then he came back here for a very private reason. And the thing is about the 80 lives is that according to the Theobans, 81 is actually 9 times 9, which represents a great cycle. Only people with the past 80 lives can survive for 9 days on their planet. This is according to them like a universal law that cannot be broken. And people with shorter past lives or with less past lives cannot really survive on the planet for that long. And so that's why Michel Desmarquet had to come back after 9 days. And unfortunately, he really didn't want to come back, and he wanted to stay there, but that couldn't happen.
So very kind of a moral of the entire story and book is that the planets, all the planets and civilizations, the millions of them that are out there, they develop a technology, they follow a certain framework, if you will, and they get nuclear power. And so many of them have destroyed themselves because the cultures were driven by monetary, driven by corruption, and not using nuclear power the correct way, and were destroyed as a result of this, including on Earth with the Mu, I guess, and then eventually the Atlantis. And so the warning is really that we need to learn how to surpass materialism with spirituality and use technology for the benefit of everybody and not fall into corruption where just a few folks have all the money like we have now on this planet, and they're using a lot of the power to stay into power instead of helping people.
That's right. So actually, one of the main themes in the book is to have us to be more like vigilant and have more independent thinking about what's really going on around the world. It actually lists money as one of the top dangers on earth because everything evolves or revolves around money here. And the politicians is the danger number two. And also, surprisingly, journalists is danger danger number three, and also religion is danger number four. So the book talks a lot about the realities here, how we can respond to the challenges that we are currently facing on Earth, and it actually gives a solution, which is to follow the footsteps of Gandhi in India, to use nonviolent protests or nonviolent resistance to go against the tyranny, because violence is never a solution. Like it talks about Napoleon and talks about Hitler, two great military strategists, but they were not able to sustain their kind of empire or power because they use violence. The real essence is love, is nonviolent resistance, is the key to go against the government structure or a totalitarian regime.
Okay, my special guest on Guys Radio is Samuel Chong. We're talking about the book, The Thiaoouba Prophecy, a fascinating story. Another thing that they talk about, Sam, is types of pollution and the importance of protecting the environment. And the author, actually, Michel, goes into a kind of an epilogue at the end and talks about how important it is to protect the environment. And one of the pollutions he talks about, which I agree with and find it fascinating that he mentioned it and stressed, is that noise pollution. And we have so much noise on Earth. I mean, I'm here in Southern California. I'm sure you've heard a lot of these cars. I didn't notice as much when I lived back east, even though New York City was very, very noisy, but it was different type of noise. Out here, you have a lot of people fix up their cars to make them noisy. And it's, to me, it's very annoying. And that, along with different types of music, can be a form of pollution and kind of lower your frequency. Talk to us a little bit about noise pollution.
Yes, the noise pollution actually damages our astral body, which is formed of electrons. So we have a physical body, but we also have an astral body, which um, kind of focuses on our spiritual development. And the noise actually interferes with the vibrational frequencies of our astral body. But a lot of people cannot see the human energy field or the astral body, but there are some people who can see them. I have a few friends, and also there's a former NASA scientist called Barbara Brennan. She wrote the three books, Hands of Light and other books, and she is one of the few people who can one of the few people who can actually see auras, the colors of human energy field. And then I asked about people like her, like what they see about a person's aura or energy field when there's a noise. They say the noise actually affects the energy field negatively. And so there's evidence about, it's just that we cannot see, just like X-rays or ultraviolet rays, we cannot see them, but it doesn't mean that they don't exist. So human energy field is actually negatively affected by noise. We have to be really careful about that. I think actually I've been written to a lot of noise pollution organizations trying to reduce noise. But when I mention about this concept, they all kind of feel that this is a science fiction, but it is not.
You know, it's amazing. Coming from New York City and then living in San Diego, I was living in downtown, and I actually found that the energy there, I thought it would be very relaxing, and it wasn't. With all of the military stuff going on in the bay and all the military ships and a lot of planes going overhead and so much construction and people driving around with the jacked up cars. It was really, I had a hard time, and my wife agreed with me, just relaxing. And now we moved up the coast, and it's a lot better. But noise is an issue that people just seem to accept as something like, oh yeah, you get used to it, but it's not a good thing. One of the things I want to ask about, Sam, in relationship to that is, you mentioned it briefly, is the auric body. We have the astral body, reading auras. What are the four bodies and how are they connected?
Well, the main body that we see is the physical body, we also have the physiological body, which is connected to our physical body, and then there's the astral body. We actually have 9 different bodies, and the book actually doesn't list all the 9 different bodies, but the most important thing that we should pay attention is the astral body, which is directly linked to our spiritual development. So once a person dies, the astral body leaves the physical body and then sends back our life experiences to the higher self, our higher self. Each of us has a higher self. And then we accumulate all the life challenges or lessons that we learned in the life, in the past lifetime, to our higher self. And then we review everything we did in this lifetime. After this life review process, then we gain more experience and we decide whether to take on another lifetime and to be reincarnated again. So the astral body, like to your question, is actually very important to our spiritual growth, which is the purpose of life. Life is a learning process, and we need to learn how to respond to the challenges in order to accumulate life lessons.
You know, the book, the Thiaoouba Prophecy, it has an amazing story where Michel is, he's kind of taken and he goes to this planet, Thiaoouba, and these beings the Thiaoubans take care of him. It's a beautiful hermaphrodite who looks feminine, as you described, Samuel. And then there's another group of them, and they're in a kind of a spaceship similar to what we've seen on the TV show and the movie Star Trek or Star Wars, whatever, more Star Trek than Star Wars, if you will. And some of their habits were very interesting. Like they would eat, but they would eat kind of very small increments of colored they're not pills really, but cubes or whatever. And they would release the energy throughout the day. So you would be satiated in terms of eating, and you wouldn't have to eat for a while. And then they would drink something called hydromel, which was a kind of a honey type of water that would also give them hydration and nourishment. Talk to us about some of the lifestyle things that Michel experienced. You know, the food, where he slept in, he's lived in this kind of this doko where it had these walls where you'd go inside and then you'd be outside. At very just interesting, mind-bending type of experiences just from a day-to-day. Talk to us about some of the things he had to kind of acclimate to, even traveling around where it was anti-gravity and things like that. Talk to us about some of those specifics.
Yeah, for the food that he ate over there on Thiaoouba, most of the time he ate the colorful powders, and they're made of fish, made of vegetables or fruits, or maybe even like milk, and then he drank this kind of like honey tasting hydromel, and he would only need to eat every 2 days or so because they release calories at a equal interval. So he didn't feel hunger or thirst for a long time. And then the host actually had to remind him of eating and drinking the hydromel. And then in terms of the doko, the building structures, they're made in a way it's like a half of an egg. And then when a person goes inside, Michel Desmarquet actually saw the outside sceneries because it's like a one-way looking glass. He can see outside from inside, but the people outside cannot see inside. And then it's actually made of energy field. So, and then for traveling, they took on like they had mostly two travel devices, but both of them used anti-gravitational technologies, so there's actually no noise. And then he would be lifted up, and then when there's a force field protecting everything, and when traveling at fast speed, he didn't feel any wind, he didn't feel any rain when it was raining. And regarding the other aspects is that he saw a lot of people meditating on the planet, and then he saw the people only wear clothes when needed to. So he actually saw a lot of naked people over there on the beach. So they don't wear clothes just to hide their genital areas. They do that just for comfort, just for keeping the temperature or something like that. So a lot of things are really, really different. When he did something, they all kind of saw him like a
Laughed.
kindergarten
Right.
child. Yes, laughed. Yes, because they levitated, and he would be very surprised. And then, and how could they levitate? And so the shocked expression on his face was kind of an interesting fact for them to be laughed at.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, one of the most compelling aspects of the book is they showed him kind of the history of our planet. And basically, they claim, and Michel claims in the book, that the Thiaoubans were instrumental in kind of overseeing the development of humans on planet Earth, which is going to fly into the face of a lot of religions and there's a lot of other aspects. They connect the dots to a lot of historical times that we are aware of, that we've been told one part of history and they explain it in a different way. Fascinating. And another thing they got into was that they had an area on Thiaoouba where there was a kind of like a suspended animation of place where many famous instrumental figures throughout history, not just of the planet Earth, but all like planets throughout the universe, were kind of kept. And why, he didn't know why they were kept there, but they were kept there, and not in a prison type of way, in a confinement way, but that's just their souls or whatever, and their physical bodies were kind of there floating around. So we get a very different story of the history of planet Earth and the universe as told to Michel from the Thiaoubans. It's just actually mind-bending. When, from your experience in the, if you want to add anything about that, Sam, please add. I don't want to get too deep into that because I don't want to upset some people who are, following more of a traditional religious beliefs.
Well, what he saw was actually nearly 200 corpses on the Golden Doko. There were mostly like important figures on different planets, because the Thiaoubans, according to the book, have the role of guiding the different planets, like including Earth, to the right direction, a more spiritual direction of life. And they are just like college professors, and we are like elementary school students. So their role was to be like a mentor to us. And Michel Desmarquet actually saw the body of Jesus Christ, actually saw the body of Christ. And according to this book, a lot of the historical accounts that's recorded in the Bible are actually interventions by this group of extraterrestrials. For example, the destruction of the two cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, was actually one of the interventions of this group of ETs, the Thiaoubans. And so was the Moses leading Hebrews out of Egypt was another intervention.
Mm-hmm.
And the birth of Jesus and the and Christ is also another story. And I would suggest people, if you're interested in learning more about it, just read the book and it explains why there are some people who believe that Jesus went to India. It explains logically and very specifically why some people say that. And it also explains that surprisingly why there's a tomb of Jesus Christ in Shingo Village, Japan. And people there, like in that village, sing like a song that sounded like an ancient Hebrew language. Why that's the case? The book explains it. And people can look it up, Shingo Village, Japan, tomb of Jesus Christ. So that's really surprising for someone like Michel Desmarquet, like an Australian landscaper who never been to Japan. He never been to Japan in his entire life. In the early 90s, writing such things like this, he wouldn't have known that. I mean, he didn't know how to type computer, and he didn't really know how to surf the internet.
It's interesting because all of the things that the Thiaoubans discuss, it's a lot of connecting the dots. For instance, when Christ was living, there was some kind of missing years, if you will, where there's no recorded history about what he was doing for a good portion of his life. And there is a tomb in Japan, to say the tomb of Christ, whether you believe it or not, that that's up to you. But there's so much information here and so many historical events and mysteries about them that the Thiaoubans kind of connect the dots with. So reading the book is a great exercise in opening your mind, and you have to read it with an open mind and then determine, okay, I believe this, or I don't believe that. But I would suggest for folks who read the book, and I would encourage them to check it out, is to not look for gotcha moments. because that's kind of how we're always doubters. And I'm not saying to blindly believe everything we are told, of course not. But just if we keep an open mind, we can learn new things, regardless if it's the Thiaoouba book or other things. It's good to have an open mind and just to listen and process, because we get one set of history and we get one set of communication from our press now, which seems to be so uniform that it's really difficult sometimes for people to become and maintain their critical thinking. What do you think, Sam?
I totally agree. We have to have more independent thinkings. And there are more recent interventions by the ETs. For example, during the 1960s, they actually prevented needles from being released in space. And I checked that out. It's actually Project Westford.
Yeah, what is it? Needles, right? These are actual needles?
Yes, needles made of copper. They were intended to improve our telecommunication systems, and they were actually Project Westward by NASA in the 1960s. They did it twice, and they failed. So, according to this book, that was due to the interventions from the Thiaoubans trying to protect us, because that if the needles were floating around in space, that would have harmed us in a very disastrous way. And another intervention they did was actually during World War II, they prevented Germany from being the first country to develop the atomic bomb. So in that sense, they sided with the US government. According to them, they sided with the lesser of the two evils. So they were trying to help us, because if Germany had developed the atomic bomb earlier than the US, there would have been like 3 times more death than what actually happened. So I found that to be fascinating, because there was a German scientist who was really on the verge of developing an atomic bomb, but he made a very stupid, very simple mistake that a scientist like him shouldn't have made. And then I found that to be extremely interesting. I think his name is Heisenberg or something, but it actually matches historical accounts. I mean, this book has very specific and verifiable facts that people can look up to.
Okay, let's get into some of the specifics here as to the book, the creation of the book, and since it's come out, and what you've had to, I'm sure, face in terms of questions about it. So, Michel dies in 2018. What was your relationship with him then? And then who took over with the marketing of the book? And I know he has a family. How did that all shake out? And what is the status of it now? And what is your
he
role?
has 2 children. Yes, and he has 2 children. And his son actually got the inheritance from Michel Desmarquet, and his son actually takes everything over from Michel Desmarquet. And Michel Desmarquet also has a Vietnamese family on that island in southern Vietnam. So they're actually more quiet about this. So I actually, I'm actually the person who knows what the one major thing Michel Desmarquet was not allowed to write in the book, because I know that fact, even though I cannot reveal it publicly. So that's the reason I've been putting so much of my time and efforts into promoting the messages in the book. I think that message is really crucial to our destiny in the future, and we have to change the ways of living. And they're helping us to do that by having Michel Desmarquet to write this book. And indirectly, because we are given the opportunity to mend our ways. If you look at history, the book of Enoch was written a long time ago. And you know what happened to Enoch, what happened to Noah, like a few decades later. So Michel Desmarquet, he was instructed to write this book as well. And then you can kind of allude to what's going to happen in the future. So this is why I'm so interested in anyone who can help to promote the messages in the book. And check it out. I think you're going to be enlightened to the information and facts that are extremely revealing.
Okay, so Michel advises people at the end of the book everybody needs to read the book 3 times. Is that because it's so phantasmic, if you will, the stories that are in there, or is it because it's part of a energetic thing where if you read it 3 times, you're going to have some type of reaction to that from an energetic, vibrational standpoint? What do you think?
I think both. The first is that the book is very dense. It contains so much information that
Sure.
one person cannot just grab it just by reading it one time. The first time I read it, I was focused on the ET technologies. The second time I read it, I was focused more on the Bible stories, the ancient scriptures, ancient civilizations. And the third time I read it, I focused more on the meaning of life and reincarnation. So every time when someone reads a book, something new comes out or jumps out. So this is one thing. The other thing is that if you read the book, you're going to feel the tone and the vibrations of the book. And if you put yourself in a very quiet environment and just to delve, delve into the book, you're going to feel that everything that the book states kind of resonates in your heart. I hope that that's the case for you, but for a lot of people and most people, it is true that when they read it, they feel that the information resonates into their inner heart.
Okay. Now, for you, Sam, what has happened with you since, I mean, your life must have changed since you got behind this book. Why do you think you have been recruited or inspired, whatever, to work with this book? And what kind of pushback have you gotten personally from this? Because if this is almost like disclosure. And the disclosure, there's no disclosure right now. We get drip, drip, drip in the news. Like now they're saying, okay, there's UFOs that have been seen and recorded and all of that. But it certainly, they haven't opened everything up and saying, this is what's really going on. And it usually works in a drip, drip, drip way. If people read this book, they're going to look at how life is on Earth very differently. And that could be dangerous for you and for Michel and his family. Tell us about that as much as you can.
Well, I think I'm so lucky to be able to learn the information and read the book a long time ago. Was that I'm also a man of action. So as Michel Desmarquet was, and he took actions, and I also take a lot of actions too. And I know the importance, and I resonate to the messages in the book. I speak 3 major languages: Chinese, Spanish, and English. And I live in Los Angeles, and I have kind of as an interpreter and Chinese translator, I have access to a lot of people in different industries. So I think I have the kind of the tools to make the messages known to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working on that in the past year or so, in the past half a year or so. And I think the danger is that people really need to believe that there are more things than what the government is telling us, and what the government has been working with. For example, if you really think if the U.S. government has been working with the gray aliens, and according to this book, Michel Desmarquet, the grays are actually from a category 1 or level 1 planet, same level as us. So if you really want to learn from the best, you should learn from the people from the ETs from category 9, the highest level of planet, not from the same level as us.
Okay. Now, for yourself, though, have you, and I have to ask you because if I was listening to the show, I want the host to ask this question. Have you been contacted by the Thiaoubans? Would you like to go to Thiaoouba?
I'd like to go to Thiaoouba, but I haven't been contacted by them because I think in my mind, I wanted to do everything on my own without help, without assistance from them, or at least direct assistance, because that's the way I learn things. I get most out of it if without outside assistance. For example, if a parent teaches children like certain concept or mathematical problem, and if I were the child, then I would want to solve the problem on my own without my parents' help, because if I get the answers, then I need to relearn in order to get a concept. So I'm more independent than maybe other people are.
So have you? What are the other folks in the UFOlogy kind of genre, if you will? And there's so many quote unquote experts out there. And there's a lot of battles going on where you have people talking about blue avians and stuff like that. There's all types of stuff going on. And when you have the internet everybody's arguing about what's true, what isn't true. You have networks like Gaia, which bring out a lot of the information, and shows like Cosmic Disclosure. Have you been contacted, and what do these people say to you?
Well, those people are actually ignoring me right now, so they don't have anything to say to me. But I would suggest the audience and the listeners to really focus on verifiable facts, the facts that they can really independently verify. Not to really just to believe anything those people say, but to do your own research. I'm a certified quote interpreter, and I take things very seriously. So for everything written in the book, I researched independently and found a lot of evidence supporting the claims made in the book. So I would suggest you to do the same, and to not to believe anything what the others say. Do your own research.
Okay, that's fair. And again, the message of the book is kind of it's a heads up to planet Earth. Be careful with the environment. Be careful with nuclear power. Be careful with the worship of materialism that we have. And really, peace, love, be better people. Go inside, meditate, learn how to do spiritual unfoldment. So the message is very positive. People might try to pick at individual aspects of the quote unquote story and say, hey, well, how about this? How about that? I found it, I'm not going to say it was bulletproof, but it was really hard to kind of pick at the details and say, well, that's not true, or that's not true. And I didn't read it in the context of trying to do that. I just read it to get the overall message. And I actually felt kind of enlightens is too big a word, but like my mind opened up and said, wow, okay, what if? And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, if people can find the book and read it in that way, maybe they'll learn something, and maybe it'll just open their mind and their hearts up.
Yes, I believe so. And reading this book is actually the best investment that I've made in my entire life. It's better than following the advice of Warren Buffett or some of the investment gurus. To me, the return is more like a spiritual return of spiritual growth. So I think that's actually the meaning of life, because you cannot take away money or material wealth when you die. Your astral body, your spiritual development is actually the main purpose of life. Is to really learn how to respond to the life challenges, the financial crisis that's coming up, and also maybe other issues or health or relationship issues, and to learn how to respond to such situations. And I think this book actually shows you how you can do that. And the short answer is to meditate and to follow your own intuition, your own heart, because we are part of God. Because when God created us, it inserted a tiny portion of itself to each one of us. And according to the Bible, the kingdom of God is within you. So you should follow your own intuition, your own heart when making such decisions, because we are connected to a higher self, which is also connected to the source, the creator, the great ether.
Do you feel that you are being guided, Samuel, by the Thiaoubans? And
I
has your
think so.
life and has your life changed since you undertook this journey, rearranging your journey, if you will, changing the course of your own personal life journey and getting behind this book?
Definitely. I mean, I was a very kind of a successful Chinese translator and interpreter. And after I got the opportunity to read this book, my entire life changed a different direction. I'm putting more and more my time into promoting the messages and hoping to make the world a better world. I also developed like a scholarship encouraging students they can apply to. So I'm doing everything possible from different angles and aspects to encourage people to get the messages. They don't have to buy this book, and if they want to, they can do that, but they can get it for free as well.
Have you been, just a few more questions, have you been discouraged by anyone?
Not yet. No, not yet.
Okay. I guess when you're being, as you said, when you're being ignored, they're not going to bother you. When it starts to really get out there, then you gotta, have your shield up, if you're your energetic shield up. Are you making money doing this?
No, I'm not.
It's
I'm pretty
unbelievable.
persistent.
Right. Well,
because I'm enough. Yeah.
And what do you think has happened to the spirit, if you will, of Michel?
I think he probably is on Category 9 planet right now. That's his wish, and I think they're going to grant his wish. He has done an excellent job in his later lifetime and writing this book and doing his best to promote the book. I think I'm taking it over as well.
Okay. Well, Samuel Chong, you're doing amazing work. The name of the book is The Thiaoouba Prophecy. It's been marketed in China as a bestseller, in fiction as nonfiction in Taiwan. It's kind of been under the radar here in the English-speaking world. We'll see what happens, but I've interviewed lots of folks who've done 20 and back, secret space program, things like that, and other experts in ET. And this is really opens things up so much more. So really fascinating. I'm reaching because there was so much information in this book, and I just finished it, and I will go back and read it again. And I would encourage everybody who is interested, if you're going to read it, just keep an open mind and make your own decisions, like we do on Guys Radio. I bring you guests, I bring information, and it's up to you to say, okay, I'm vibing with this or I'm not. But you've done a lot of hard work. I respect you for the work you're doing, Samuel. And stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you for being on Guys Radio. And where can people find the book and find more about you?
They can search the name of the book on Amazon, and they can search on Google my name, Samuel Chong, and the name of the book, and to find more information about my researches and conclusions.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being on Guys Radio. Maybe we'll do it again at some point. I want to read the book a few more times.
Thank you.
Okay. If you enjoy the guests and content I bring you each and every week to Guys Radio and Guys TV, please support us by subscribing to our channels. Thank you.